Mr. Beard, good evening. I guess it is evening now, isn't it?
Yes, good evening. My name is Ken H. Beard III. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Shortline Railroad in Modesto, California, and I'm also here representing the California Shortline Railroad Association as their president. It's a state association including all of the shortline railroads as well as our Class 1 partners, the BN and the UP. So. And with me is Dave Bucklow with the CCT Railroad.
I'm Dave Bucklow. I'm the general manager of the Central California Traction Company that proudly serves the Port of Stockton. So I'm also a member of the National Transcare Working Group, and Mr. Brady that was here and myself, along with Mr. King, are on the FRA-RSAC committee. So we attend those meetings in Washington, D.C. together, see each other a lot in D.C., more than we like to, I think.
I can understand that. Thank you, and thanks for being here. Now, just in the essence of time, I want you to be able to present whatever you feel comfortable with, but if there's additional information that we can rely on that related to the safety practices of the short-line railroads and how that differs perhaps from the main lines and the interaction between the two, that would be helpful.
Got a really short slide presentation,
and
it's got the safety information in it.
Great consultants here would love to see it as well. Thank you.
One of the things that we always say about the short lines is, while we may not be as long as our Class 1 partners, our track is just as wide.
And you're just as good as well.
We are. Let's see. There it is. Just a little history of the two railroads, both of us. Central California Traction was incorporated in 1905. We serve the Port of Stockton. We used to come to Sacramento, but we don't anymore. No business on that portion of the track. And we serve the wine and food industry. The M&ET that Ken is vice president of was founded in 1911. There's actually 4 short lines in the state that are all over 100 years old. They serve the food and wine industry, and in fact serve the largest winery in the country, the good folks at Gallo, along with a lot of the canning industry. So the short lines are very important to the state of California. Besides the 4 that are over 100 years old, most of the other short lines acquired track from BNSF or Southern Pacific. This was track that was marginal for their operations. They took it over and were able to retain business in some of the smaller communities. The safety in the California short lines, our safety culture is the same as Union Pacific's and BNSF. We have a vested interest. The first thing we do every day is safety. We work with total safety culture. We want everyone to go home safe. The first thing everybody does every morning at all of our short lines is we have a safety job briefing. Go over what we're going to do and how we're going to do the work. If that changes, the job briefing changes. You've heard about, we use total safety culture, TSC. Union Pacific has a program that some of the short lines have adopted, similar to BNSF's. It's called Courage to Care. It's a peer-to-peer safety program. We have folks that inspect the tracks, but one of the other things that we do is many of the members sponsor TransCare, which is the industry safety and training initiative that, in fact, I just got an email from the director of TransCare that let me know that American Petroleum Institute today became a sponsor of TransCare, and we are going to start putting together a crude oil by rail training program. Evidently tomorrow. I've got to get on a conference call for that. So we're going to start working with API on that. But in 2013, the short lines sponsored 5 stops for ethanol training here in the state. One of them was here in Sacramento, 3 general railroad emergency response seminars, and 1 chlorine response seminar. That was here in Sacramento. It's actually at the museum every year in conjunction with the continuing education event that's held every year by the different fire departments and stuff right here in Sacramento for California. In 2014, we're sponsoring training in 4 locations for chlorine first response and 4 railroad emergency response training classes. In conjunction with BNSF and UP last year, we trained over 6,000 first responders in the state of California on railroad emergency response. We do have 25 members, and I'll just skip over that fairly quickly, that go from the Oregon border all the way to San Diego and to the mountains. And we're the vital link that connects the first and last mile of freight in a lot of cases for UP and BNSF. track and bridge maintenance. We're required to comply with those same rules that were for bridge maintenance that FRA has out there. And while we may not have as many people as Dave Wickersham has, we have somebody on staff that inspects our bridges. Most of the short lines, and I can't speak for all of them, but in the case of Ken's and mine, we use a certified professional engineer from a bridge engineering firm that has done engineering work on bridges, rail bridges for over 100 years. They come out and we inspect every bridge with that certified engineer every year. If they find a defect, we make repairs on those bridges. We also fund money to upgrade our bridges as needed. Some of the branch lines currently can't handle the weight of the heavy cars, so those railroads can't handle that type of traffic, and everybody is looking to upgrade their bridges to meet the current standard of 286,000 pounds for the rail cars. Here you can see CSLRA members doing both track maintenance and bridge maintenance. That's a bridge that's being upgraded with concrete piers from wood, and a crew doing some track maintenance where they're installing a new road crossing. That's actually up here in Sacramento at Fruit Ridge Road this last year. We do spend money on our infrastructure. Again, we don't spend as much as our friends at $5 billion a year, but we plow money back into our infrastructure and keep our infrastructure up to handle the cars. And as you can see from the pictures, we have our railroads look about as good as theirs. We don't have as many concrete ties either because for the slow speeds that we run, we don't need concrete ties. And if you have any questions of the short lines.
Oh, very nice, thank you.
Glad to answer them.
I don't think I do, other than the question that I asked before. Do you handle crude oil?
Yes, we do. We do at the CCT. I don't know who else is handling crude oil at this time of any of the short lines. I don't think any other short line is. Richmond Pacific may be handling them also.
And would it be the volume that we're talking about here, or is it just going from the main lines to the... The
main line hands it off to us, and currently what's happening with that crude oil is it's coming in 10-car cuts once a month. I think it's more of a test for some of the refineries right now. They're putting it in a truck and they're trucking it over to the Bay Area. So okay. We also handle ethanol on our railroad and haven't had any problems doing that at all.
Do you see that volume increasing?
The ethanol's pretty much stayed the same. In fact, ethanol fell off a little bit during the recession. People were driving less. Ethanol's coming back again. We're not sure where crude oil, at least in our case or some of the other short lines, is going to go. There's 5 or 6 projects proposed right now, and I only know of one that's being constructed, and I think that's down around the Bakersfield area. So as you all know, the permitting process in California is difficult at best.
I've never heard that before.
So,
what a shock.
And so I'm not sure that the volumes of crude are going to be that great. And as Wick pointed out, that's about 6 more trains a day in total on the railroads with the volumes that are being projected. So it's not that many trains more a day. We run more trains of corn and grain in the state of California to feed all those they're happy cows.
Happy cows.
Contented cows are Texas cows.
And those are the ones that, and the weight of those trains are greater than the weight you find from
than the crude oil trains. So and the short lines do handle a significant amount of the unit trains from our Class 1 partners of corn, because it's going into the agricultural areas.
Okay. Well, it's very good. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the testimony, and thank you for being here today. Sorry it took a little longer than expected.
One of the things that at least the short lines, because we're close to Sacramento, of course, UP and BNR2, is if any member ever wants to come out and visit either the CCT or the M&ET, and I'm sure the other members of our group would say the same thing, we welcome visitors to see what we do.
Let me take you up on it. Thank you very much. Thanks for the testimony. And now we do have an opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this issue and offer some public comment? Yeah. Good evening.
I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Tim Smith. I'm the state chairman for the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. We're part of the Teamsters Rail Conference. And I listened to the testimony up here, and I support the efforts of this committee to take a look at crude oil shipments by rail. It's a cause that's very near and dear to me, and I'm sure that we have problems involved in the railroad that most folks, most laypersons wouldn't understand, and I wouldn't go into it now, but it seems to me that the carriers are very reluctant to talk about the one thing that makes them the success that they are, and that's their personnel. I represent engineers and conductors, as some of my colleagues out there in the audience do. It's very important for us to remember that they have a very difficult job. They're on call 24/7. A lot of times they get a very short notice call that they're unprepared for. So you, Senator Hill, you talked earlier about human-caused accidents, human factor derailments. There are categories in any kind of an accident report that the carriers fill out. It's very easy for the carrier to check the mark by the thing called human factor. It seems to be more often than not a catch-all category. My objection to that whole system is that we don't get to root causes. We want to prevent human factor accidents, then let's get to the root causes. Let's just not check a box and say that's good enough, now let's move on, because we can blame those labor guys there. That's not fair. My people have a very, very important job. I'm not only the state chairman, I'm also a federally licensed and certified locomotive engineer, 42 years of experience. So I've seen a lot in 42 years. And I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, but I just want to give credit where credit's due. We talk about the close call reporting. The close call reporting is still, to me, in its infancy stages. It started in North Platte, Nebraska on the railroad, and I believe it's spread a little bit elsewhere from there, but it isn't everywhere it needs to be. If you talk about close call reporting, I can guarantee you that there are an abundance, a plethora of close calls that happen every day on the nation's railroads. And major catastrophes are averted because of the professionalism of the crews, the railroad employees that are out there, that see impending doom about to occur and stop it before it gets to that stage. So we like to consider ourselves as partners with the rail carriers in all of this, but we seem less likely to get the credit from the carriers when I feel that it's due. We want the increase in business through the oil industry, the Bakken oil, but we want to make doggone sure that it's safe, not only for the people that I represent out there in California that are hauling these things, but safe for the community and safe for the environment. As a citizen of this state, that also is just as important to me. So that's basically all I have for you right now. I thought it needed to be said.
No, I appreciate it, Mr. Smith. Thank you. And a couple of questions. Dr. King spoke of a NASA reporting system, I think. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's...
I'm sorry, could you refresh me on that, sir?
Well, it's the kind of a reporting system that was mentioned related to the and how best to look at, I guess, root cause of, as you were talking about before, that when you mentioned that there isn't a root cause analysis that's done, and I guess that's the question that I wanted to kind of follow up on is there a, you mentioned that it's just to check the box, but the NTSB or whoever does really the oversight of events, they get to the root cause, I would suspect, of most accidents that occur.
My opinion, at times they do, sir, but I don't see a lot of that. I don't see a lot coming out of the NTSB other than on a very delayed, long-term basis when they investigate an accident. We don't get the results for sometimes years, and they can only make recommendations with regard to situations like we've got, positive train control being one of them. But it's my people that are charged with having to implement that technology. They're the ones that run it. They're the ones that have to do it with positive train control and with distributive power and the plethora of things that have come out. I used to go to work and have, this many rules that I used to have to apply to my job. Now these guys have to bring a suitcase of rules. Right. So, root cause can be, anything you want it to be, but when it comes time to look at human factor root causes, the primary thing is fatigue, short crew call times. We've been asking the carriers for adequate train lineups so that my people know when they're going to work, and they're reluctant to do that. We've heard pie in the sky, and sometimes they get a little bit better. But bottom line is we're getting back there right now, I can honestly tell you, and it's a little disheartening to see because, as we all probably know, summer's upon us, or it'll be upon us soon enough, and the business typically increases. When the business increases, the train lineup accuracy goes way downhill. That's when people are called to work short notice. They were expecting to get all night in bed. Next thing you know, their head hits the pillow and the phone rings, and that happens more often than not. So as far as any system that there may be with regard to reporting this stuff, I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you I know all the ins and outs of what the carriers and regulatory agencies are doing. That may be, but I haven't seen the evidence. We have safety, the switching operations fatality analysis report that comes out all the time. And in there you'll see a lot of these categories placed in there and the categorizations that fall under those particular assessments by the carriers. So,
thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate your testimony and coming before us and your comments. Any other public comment? Very good. Thank you. Well, on behalf of Senator Padilla and the committee, I really want to thank everyone who is here today and participated, very thorough participation in today's hearing. And I particularly want to thank the outstanding staff of this committee. They have done a tremendous job of putting together an analysis and a background paper that I read over the weekend and found it just very, number one, interesting, but full of facts that I was really amazed with and didn't have an idea or clue of before, so it was very helpful. It's important that the legislature and the administration and the industry work together to ensure that we do everything that we can to prevent rail accidents. However, as we've heard today, we have a dramatic increase in rail transport of crude oil and other hazardous materials that will be moving throughout our state. This increases the possibility that we have to respond to an accident. And that brings me to the next point. With that in mind, the Senate Environmental Quality Committee and the Natural Resources Committee will be conducting a joint hearing on March 19th. At that time, we will hear from the agencies responsible for responding in the case of an emergency or of an accident. If an accident occurs, it will be imperative that we can react in order to mitigate the damage and prevent harm to public health and to our environment. So I look forward to seeing you there for that hearing next month. Until then, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you all again very much, and thank you for great